Hello everybody and welcome to this workshop on the use of EndNote X9. Hopefully by this stage you all have installed EndNote X9 on your computers and you have the worksheet for this workshop as well. If you haven't got the worksheet, just pause the video and go to the EndNote guide on the library website and go to the further help and support section of the guide and you can see the link to download the guide. And come back to us when you've got that. So I'm going to continue straight on. I'm going to start sharing my computer with you, and we'll start by creating an EndNote library. So this is EndNote. When you've opened it, you'll see it's got the usual menu at the top, File, Edit, References, and we'll go through those as we go through this workshop. But we're going to start off, as I said, by creating an EndNote library, and you just go to File, New, and then you can save the library somewhere that you'll be able to find it again. And I do strongly recommend that you give it a distinctive name so that you will be able to find it easily. You don't have to create multiple libraries. You can get by with just one library, but it always helps to give something a distinctive name, such as if you're creating a Word document. So I'm going to give this library my name. I'm just going to call it Dermot, and then I'm going to click on Save. And now I've created my first library. I'm just going to maximize everything so that my screen looks like this. Before we continue, I just want to point out one thing, and that is that you need to be aware that your EndNote library is actually made up of two parts. So if I've saved my library to the desktop, so you'll see there's a file called dermot.enl, and that's my EndNote library, but there's also a folder called dermot.data. And the .data folder is where EndNote saves PDFs and other files you want to put into your EndNote library. So if you want to move your library from one computer to the other, you need to bring both parts with you. Okay. So I'm going to go back into my EndNote library. There are a number of ways you can go about adding references to your library. You can use PDFs if you've already downloaded some to build up your library. You could export references from OneSearch and a variety of different databases, but you should also be aware of the most basic way of getting references into your library, and that is the manual way. So sometimes you will come across references, you can't find them online, you can still add them to the library, but you have to put in the information yourself. So you'll see in the worksheet we have a book listed there for you, and it's The Snapper by Roddy Dial, and it's very easy to get that in. You just go to References up at the top, go to New Reference, and you have a long list of fields to fill in. Before you start typing any information in, the first thing you have to do is decide what type of a reference it is. By default in EndNote X9, it is journal article. But as I said, we're doing a book. So you'd go to the drop-down menu and find the book option. When you click on book, it'll change on the screen to give you the right fields to put a book in and to reference it correctly. If you don't have the right style, you may not be able to reference correctly. So next we go to add in our information. So we're going to put in the author's name. So in EndNote X9, you can put the author's name in first name, surname, or surname, comma, first name. EndNote will sort it out at the other end. So I'm going to put in Roddy Dial. And if Roddy Dial had written this book with somebody else, you just go on, hit return, go on to a new line and put in the information. If this book had been written with 20 people, all the authors' names need to go in. And I put all the rest of the information in, the year of publication, the title of it, which is The Snapper, the place published, which is London, and you put in the publisher as well. And once you've got all that information in, you'll have enough information to be able to reference that book correctly. And you'll see as you scroll down, there's lots of other extra information in there as well. So for example, there is the ISBN, the DOI if you're dealing with an article. There is the abstract if you want to put that in there as well. If you're dealing with a web page, you need to put the URL in. And obviously, if you're putting a web page or any web-based resource, you need to put the access date in because you need to say when you've viewed that article. And then all I need to do is save that. So I can go to the lower X here on the right-hand side, click close. I'll be asked if I want to save this reference, and then I click yes. And there's my reference within my EndNote library. So you've put your first reference into your EndNote library. So now I'm just going to show you where these tabs on the right-hand side come into effect. So you'll see reference. Reference allows you to go into an existing reference that you've highlighted in the center pane and make some corrections. So if I remember that Roddy Dial had written that book with somebody else, I could go in and make the changes there and save it. If I preview, I can see what that reference looks with the referencing style that I've chosen. And one of the great things about EndNote is that you've got access to thousands of different referencing styles. And you can just change at any stage to whatever referencing style that you want to use. And to change your referencing style, if you go back over the top at the left, you'll see a drop-down menu. If the style that you want to use is not listed there, just go to select another style, and then you'll see all the styles that are available. There's a quick search box here. So for example, if I want to see Vancouver, I can put in Vancouver, hit the enter button, and I'll find all the styles that have Vancouver in the title, and I can click on it, click choose, and if you watch on the right hand side where the ref preview is at the moment, you'll see it changing. And you know that the Vancouver style is a number style, so we've changed to that. We won't be going into the third tab just yet, and this is where you go to view attached PDFs. And we'll be showing you about attaching PDFs a bit later on in this workshop. So that is the most basic way of getting references in. So if you have an article, a book, website, whatever that you want to put into your EndNote library, you can always do it this way manually. Make sure that you do pick the right reference style. So that is the first way of getting references into your library. We're going to go on now to the second way, and that is where you can actually select multiple references and bring them in very quickly. Now, just for consistency's sake, if we all use the Chrome browser when we're doing this, so I'm going to open my Chrome browser here. And in your worksheet, we use James Joyce as an example for our search. So if I just type in James Joyce into my search box, click the go button, and we see what results we have in one search for James Joyce. And I can select up to 50 references at this stage. And to do that, all I do is click on the little folder icon beside each reference. And every time I click on it, it turns red. And if you look at the top right-hand corner of of your screen, you'll see there's a larger folder, and it has the number of references you've selected. And then just click on the large folder. It'll display all the references that you have selected. And then you can go to Export to EndNote. And because we're using the Chrome browser, if you look down the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see there's a file after appearing. It says export-endnote, and RIS is at the end of it. And that file contains all the references that we had selected in EndNote. And it's very simple here. From here on to get our references into our EndNote library, all I have to do is click on that file, and my references will now appear in my EndNote library. Now you notice that the snapper reference that we put in manually has disappeared, and this is because EndNote expects you at this stage to check that everything is okay. Don't assume just because you have found a reference in one search or a database that is going to be coming across perfectly to EndNote. Sometimes bits of information will be missing, and it's your job to check that everything is okay. And all you've got to do is click on the title. You'll see it with the referencing style that you've chosen, so check that everything is okay, or go to the reference tab and you'll be able to check all the bits of information. And you can go in just as you did with the manual way of entering the references and make changes and update it so that it is correct. So you can see how very easy it is to get your references from one search into your EndNote library. And it's a very similar process when you go out to search databases. So we're going to go to one of the biggest sources that we have in the library. So I'm going back out into our Chrome browser again. And this time I'm going to search for Science Direct. Click on search. And you'll see there's a link there for Science Direct journals. So I can just click on Science Direct journals. If you're ever asked to log in, of course, it's just going to be a UCD Connect login details that you will require. Click on the login button and you'll be brought into Science Direct. So we're just going to search in one search again in the keywords box for James Joyce. And click then on the search button and we'll get some references. So once again, we need to select the references we want to bring in. And it's just a matter of ticking the box beside the references you're interested in. So my own experience of searching databases, it's either going to be a tick box like this. Other databases, it's a folder like we saw in OneSearch. And the other one that I've seen is in Google Scholar, where it's a little star you've got to click on. And then we're going to go to the export option. And it tells me that I've selected 4 references and it gives me a number of options to export my references. If the source that you've chosen doesn't explicitly say EndNote, look for the option that says RIS, because that's a format that EndNote can import. And I click on that link. And just to be so in OneSearch, it's going to save a file to our browser here in Chrome. And there you'll see it on the bottom left-hand corner. And just again, as we did in when we brought references in from OneSearch, we just click on that file. It hides the existing references. There's all the references that we brought in. And you can check, once again, looking over on the right-hand side to make sure all the information is correct. If at any stage you then want to view all the references that are in our library, or in your library, I should say rather, on the left-hand side, there's a link for all references. If I click on that, there's the references we brought in from OneSearch. There's the Roddy Dial book that we manually entered. And then finally, there's the references we brought in from Science Direct. So it's pretty much exactly the same way when you're bringing references in. So that's 2 of the ways of bringing references in. There's the manual way, which we saw initially. We have to type the information or copy and paste the information in. There is the way that we've seen OneSearch and the databases, which is identical. And the last way of getting references into your library is using PDFs that you might have saved. So if you have been doing a lot of research and finding loads of PDFs, you saved into your computer, bring them all together into one file or one master file with subfolders. And then you can start bringing those references, those PDFs quickly into your library. And to do that, you go to File, you go to Import, and you go to Folder. Now I've saved all my PDFs onto my desktop, so I just click on the Choose button. I work my way to the desktop, and then I have them all in a PDF folder, a folder called PDF. Click on OK. If you've got loads of subfolders, you can tick to include the subfolders, so make sure you do that. Make sure that the import option is set to PDF. And also, if you have been saving loads of PDFs to your computer, and you think you might have brought the same PDF in more than once, I could see that happening quite easily, you have the option to discard duplicates. And then when you're ready, just click on Import. This will take a few minutes, and what it's doing is that it's looking for the DOI and the PDF. If you haven't heard of a DOI before, the DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, and it's a unique string of characters to identify every article that's been published. Not every journal article will have a DOI, but if it has the DOI, the references will be brought in. Also, this does take a bit of time, so if you have a load of references, I recommend starting the process, then going off and have a cup of tea or going for lunch, because there's nothing you can do to help in the process, and it's not the most exciting. Then, looking at the results, you'll see that it's divided into two sections. At the bottom here, the ones that I've highlighted, those are the ones that have worked flawlessly. These are the PDFs that had the DOI in them, and EndNote has been able to go out and get all the bibliographic information and bring them in. You'll notice also on the left-hand side, there's a paperclip. The paperclip is to indicate that there is an attachment or a file associated with this reference. And if I click on one of those and I scroll on down, you'll see there's a PDF there. And now you can actually have tools within EndNote to actually read that PDF. If we go back up to the top again, you'll see there is a tab for PDF. If I click on the PDF and then go for the square with the outward facing arrow, that will open up the PDF. You can add a note, you can highlight, you can underline, you can strike through. So you can annotate these PDFs. So for example, if I highlight this bit of text there and just highlight it, and then if when I try to close it back down again, I'll be asked if I want to save it. So I'll click on yes, because I want to keep that annotation, and there it is. So you can do that to your library or to PDFs in your library. The other three references, you'll notice that all they have is the name of the PDF. And this is because these references did not contain, or these PDFs did not contain the DOI. So EndNote is not able to go out and locate the bibliographic information. So these references, you would have to go out and search OneSearch or Google Scholar or a database, find the information, and then drag the references in, or bring the references in as we've shown you. Okay. So those are the ways we have of bringing references into our library. And as I said, I'm going to go to all references here on the left-hand side. Now, as I said at the start, you only need to have one EndNote library. But you can subdivide your library up into smaller sections. You can just separate it by module, dissertation, chapter, assignment. It's up to you to decide that. But if you have a reference that you were using regularly, it doesn't make sense to bring it into your EndNote library multiple times. And you can easily create these groups by going to the My Groups section. If you right-click on My Groups, then click on Create Group, you get a box that can give a name. So number 1. And I create 2, create group number 2. And I go back to all references. I can select the references that I want to bring in. If I hold down the control button, I can select references that are not beside each other. And then if I click on the blue and hold down the left mouse button, I can just drag them into a group. And you can fit the same reference in as many groups as you want to. So I've selected one of the same references again, so I'm just going to drag it into number 2. And if I click in the groups, I just see those references. I can focus in on that information. So it's very easy to get your EndNote reference, fill your EndNote library with references, and to then organize your references into small groups. And when you get your references in, the next thing you have to do is decide, how do I get my references out and into a Word document? So when you install EndNote on your computer, you should also see a new EndNote menu in Microsoft Word. And if I open up my Word now, you should see it. So there is my new EndNote menu, and you'll need to use this to get your references in. Don't go into the References tab. That is totally separate. Make sure you go into the EndNote X9 tab to get your references in from your EndNote library. You also need to have your EndNote library open when you're doing this, and all the references that you want to put into a document have to come from the same EndNote library. So we're going to create a few paragraphs of text on your in this document. So if you type equal RAND open brackets close brackets, and this is in your worksheet, so you can just do that and then press enter, it's going to put a few paragraphs on your screen. So it's equal RAND open brackets close brackets. And then, just as you would normally be doing, if you want to back up an argument that you're making, you need to put in a citation from an article that or a reference that you have in your EndNote library. So I've gone to the end of the first paragraph. I'm actually just going to make this slightly bigger because it's smaller than I thought. There we go. So this is our Word document. I'm going to go back to my EndNote toolbar, and I'm going to click on the Insert Citation icon on the EndNote toolbar. And this gives me a search box to allow me to search my EndNote library. So we did lots of references with James Joyce as a keyword. So I'm just going to search for Joyce. And I'm going to click on Find. And there we go. I found my references. And I can select multiple references by holding down the Control button. And then I can click on Insert. And where I had my cursor, you'll notice that the references have gone in. And if I scroll on down, you'll see I'm starting to build up my bibliography at the same time. So it's very easy to get your references from EndNote into your Word document. If I realized I shouldn't have put the Pierce reference into my Word document here, don't just highlight it and delete it as we normally would when we see something we don't like. You need to use the EndNote toolbar to safely get rid of it. So if I click on a specific citation in my Word document, it'll highlight itself in gray. And this is one of the ways you can identify the difference between a reference that you've manually put in or cited and one that you've used EndNote to insert. So there is the citation. I go to Edit and Manage Citations. And if I had multiple references or citations in my document, it can be difficult to pick the right one, but clicking on it in advance will bring it to the right one. And as I said, I wanted to get rid of the Pierce reference. So I highlight it. I go to the drop-down menu on the right-hand side and click on the triangle on the far right and click on Remove Citation. And there we go, that reference has disappeared. And then just click on OK. And if I scroll down to the bottom, you'll notice that the other references disappeared from my bibliography. If it was multiple times in the document, of course, I'd expect it to remain there. The flip side of that is also true. If I have a reference already in my document and I want to put a second reference there, click on it to highlight it in EndNote, up to Edit and Manage Citations, go back to the drop-down menu by clicking on the triangle, and this time click on Insert Citation. Find the reference you want to put in. You can it'll retain the existing search, it can go search again. Click Insert, click OK, and there we go. The reference has been put in. There are other things that you can do in Edit and Manage Citations. If I click on it again, you do have the option, if your referencing style allows it, to exclude the author or exclude the year. So for example, if you said Stokes says that, and you give a quotation, you don't need to put Stokes in the brackets because you said Stokes said it. So it's explicit as to who the author is. It'll just have the year. Or alternatively, if you said in 2019 it was proven, then you don't have to put the year in. So you have a number of options as to how you want the citation to display. You can have it default, which is the way we've seen. You can have it as the author outside the bracket. You can exclude the author from the bracket. You can exclude the year. You can exclude both, or you can have it just display in the bibliography. So I'm just going to exclude the author. So if I click on exclude author, click OK, you'll see the first citation, the author's name has disappeared, and we're just left with the year of publication. One other thing you will have to do when you're citing a reference and you have actually citing a specific page, or you're quoting a section of text, you need to say what page you got that reference from. And you'll see at the bottom there are 3 boxes: prefix, suffix, pages. You might think that pages is the logical place to go, but it only works properly with certain referencing styles. So ignore it and just go to suffix. And you just type in the information. So I'm going to put a comma first of all, a space, the page number. So you're putting a lowercase p with a full stop, a space, and then whatever page number that you want. If you're putting in multiple pages, you just put two lowercase p's and then 54-55. Then click OK, and then you'll see that page number appearing beside that reference. But make sure you adapt what I've said to whatever referencing style, because they may wish you to input the page number formatted differently. You're not, once again, you're not limited to one specific referencing style. The next option is the style drop-down menu. If the style you want to use is not listed here, go to the very top and select another style. Click on it. Now there isn't a search box this way, but you just need to, if you hit the first letter, so for example, if I wanted to change this to Harvard, H will bring me down to the start of the H's, and then select the version of Harvard. There could be multiple versions available for you. Click OK, and everything will change on the screen, and your bibliography will change then also to reflect the changes. Nearly finished. There are a few more options available for you. If you're using EndNote for a dissertation or thesis, and you've ended up with multiple chapters, your introduction, your methodology, your conclusion, etc. It'll mean that each of those chapters has their own small EndNote bibliography. But of course, when you're submitting it, you'll have to bring all your references together and into one master bibliography. And EndNote has tools to allow you to do that. And it's in this menu here, Convert Citations and Bibliography. So go to the drop-down menu, click on Convert to Unformatted Citations. You'll notice that straight away your bibliography has disappeared. Don't worry, it's supposed to have. And you'll notice that the brackets have changed from just the plain round ones to slightly more ornate, and there's some more text within the brackets as well. EndNote calls these placeholders, and there's enough information there for EndNote to be able to identify those references from your library. So you would do this for all the chapters you want to bring together into a master document, and then all you would do is you would copy the text and then paste it in the right order, your chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, into a new document. And then all you have to do to reapply the referencing style that you've chosen is click on the Update Citations and Bibliography option, and it'll go through your entire document, reapply your chosen referencing style, and at the very end, you'll see the referencing, your bibliography with the referencing style that you've chosen. One other option here in the Convert Citations and Bibliography drop-down menu is Convert to Plain Text. If you are writing for publication, the publishers expect that any document you submit to them will have the EndNote coding removed. They say it interferes with their desktop publishing packages. So this Convert to Plain Text option allows you to do this, but be very careful, because if you don't do this correctly, you will end up with just plain text version, where you are supposed to end up with the existing document with the EndNote style as well as the plain style. So I would always recommend that you work from a backup when you get to this stage. Nothing will happen if you're paying attention, but it's just as an extra security feature, just to give yourself ease of mind. So at the moment, I haven't saved this document, and if I click on Convert to Plain Text, I'm being prompted by the EndNote toolbar. It's telling me that this document has not been saved. It's suggesting that I do save the document by performing the remove field codes, and then ask me would I like to save the document or continue without saving. So yes, I would like to save the document. You give it a name. Click Save. And there we go. It is now, you'll see at the top it says document 2. So this is the plain text version. If I click on any of the citations, they don't turn gray. So this is how you can tell it's plain text, and nothing happens when I click on my bibliography as well. So this would be the version you would send off to the publisher, and then they will come back with their suggested corrections and amendments, and then you can implement those in the EndNote version that you still have on your computer. And that's really the basics of using EndNote. So we've covered how to create your EndNote library. We've covered how to manually insert your references into your EndNote library, how to use tools such as OneSearch and databases to put references into your EndNote library, and how to use PDFs to build up your library as well. We then went on to Word, and we've shown you how to insert references into your EndNote library, to remove the references that you don't want, or add in extra ones where you already have an existing reference, and how to add page numbers. We've shown you how to change your referencing style, and we have shown you how you can merge multiple documents together to produce a master bibliography, and how to prepare any EndNote document for publication. The last thing I want to do is just remind you where the guide on the library website is, where you can get extra help. And you'll find that if we go to our browser and go to the library homepage, you'll see at the top there, there's a section called Guides and Help. Then go to I am a student. Scroll on down and go to the Study Skills section and click on EndNote. So there is all my contact details, and if you go to further help and support, you'll find some manuals for downloading as well. So thank you for attending this workshop. Please do get in touch if you have any questions, and I hope you have success in using EndNote as well. Thank you for watching.